So I wanted to really begin today with your current role at Wendy Brooks, because it's a role that's not traditionally thought about from lawyers. So I was hoping you could share a little bit more about this role and what you do on a day-to-day.
Oh, I would love to. So I actually joined the family business. So my mother set up the business, I think it's nearly 7 years ago now, and my father joined the business a few years ago. They're sort of yin and yang. So my father does kind of the operations, and Wendy does the big picture and the strategy and the schmoozing with, important people. And so I was really lucky to be able to join the business at the start of last year, and I'm still consulting with Law Squared. So I feel like I've got sort of the best of both worlds, because after being in the law for 12 years, it kind of gets into your blood, and it's hard to sort of leave, altogether. So really enjoying still doing a little bit of law, but Wendy Brooks Partners has been a whole new world for me, because it's all been about learning strategic fundraising and working with clients to look at how they can optimize their fundraising, particularly in the area of philanthropy. So we do a lot of work where we look at accessing grants through philanthropic means, which is really interesting. So the reason why it's called Wendy Brooks Partners is because it's really based on the great connections that Wendy has built up over many, many years of working in the sector. So from my perspective, and I always joke with people that in our family, we're sort of half teachers and half lawyers. And I think there's a lot of crossover between those professions and now fundraising, because fundamentally, to be a good lawyer, you need to be good at reading, writing, thinking analytically, but also communicating well. And so with Wendy Brooks Partners, we spend a lot of time with our clients up front doing strategy work, thinking about what is the actual need that they are trying to address, and if they didn't exist, what would the world be without? So really trying to communicate to funders, this is why the organisation must exist, and the aspirational goals are X, Y, Z, and then really drilling down to the programs that these clients produce and develop, and looking at how do we communicate the need to funders, because often the people working in the business or in the organisation, because they're working with these issues on a daily basis, they forget that the rest of the world doesn't already know those situations. So a really good example, working for an amazing organisation called the Song Room, and I didn't realise, but 3 out of 4 primary schools don't have a dedicated music teacher. And my mind was blown, because I grew up with music, and my primary school in Geelong had a fantastic music teacher, and we also had a lot of extracurricular activities around that. So even just that statistic of understanding that a lot of children don't get access to music then assists us in communicating the need to funders. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the work I do is really around getting the pitch material right. How do we pitch to funders what the need is, what the organisation is trying to achieve, and if the funders gave us money, how would we really shift the dial? So that's the bit that I get really excited about and love doing. And then we work with a client all year to try and build up their relationships in philanthropy. So again, I love that element of it, because it's about people. It's about connecting the right people to the right people. So we do a lot of funder meetings and introductions and building up that wealth of relationship. And then hopefully at the end of the year, and we've just had some really great results, we get told you've been successful with some funds, and then we start the acquittal process. So that's actually making sure that we're using the money for what we said we were going to use it for, and that we can demonstrate to that funder that we're doing good with that money, because that's a really important part of that donor stewardship as we go through the relationship. So just on Friday, we found out that we got $90,000 from one fund, and that money is going to go to mothers at risk. So mothers that are really struggling, helping their children. And in COVID, they needed that support even more. So our client is building a virtual platform. So that money is just going to assist so many people within our community. So it was a bit of a happy dance moment, and that's, I guess, the reward.
Now, who are your funders typically? What do they look like?
It's interesting, like in the philanthropy world, funders are generally rich people, wealthy people. But there's a mixture of people that have actually already passed. So dead people that set up these amazing trusts and foundations. And then there's a group of people that look after those trusts and foundations. They might actually be lawyers, or they might be organisations such as Equity Trustees or Perpetual, and they manage a huge range of funds. So our job is to really make sure that we know who are the people, the actual decision makers. So each trust will, it'll have documents that will determine where they can spend their money, but then we need to work out who are the decision makers that are going to make that call, and really try and build that relationship with them, and make sure that they understand, again, the need and what we're trying to do. So they can be, but they can also be private philanthropists. So we had a call a couple of weeks ago from a fellow who's in finance in Sydney, and he just said, I want to give $500,000 before the end of the year. So he wants to give it to an area that he's interested in, and we need to match, his interest to the programs and our clients that we've got on our books. So that's a really exciting opportunity there, and we can get calls from government or from philanthropists, sometimes, private individuals. So just, from a raft of people. But, we spent a good deal of COVID really working on our database, which we've decided to call Grantly. And, that's a wealth of knowledge now. We're just really building up all of our information and basically everything inside Wendy's head, and making sure it's in a database that our clients can really tap into and access those opportunities.